Reserve. We're with you for a fantastic round 10 clash between the Central Queensland Capras and the Luxury Paints Ipswich Jets. Great to have you with us on Phoenix Radio, phoenix.com.au. Smith somehow right down the instant touchline, 12-4 the score with the first attacking opportunity the Capras had.
Hello and welcome to another edition of After the 80, your local source of everything rugby league. Joined today as always, he's a bit sour due to Parramatta going down by 38 points to the Roosters over the weekend. It's Anthony Bomber-Rees. Thanks for coming back on.
No, good to be here there. Unfortunately, the team can't win every week and it was a very disappointing performance, but we'll hit back this week.
And loss of Corey Norman.
Yeah, Corey's going to be a big loss, but it gives somebody else a chance to have a go. Maybe Jamal Fogarty from the Burleigh Bears might get a start this week.
So we've seen some good things from him in the past.
Well,
Let's jump straight into the action from round 8 of the Rugby League Ipswich competition, and it kicked off on Saturday night with the North's Tigers getting a 36-12 win over the Swifts Bluebirds. The win jumps the Tigers from 4th to 2nd on the Mayor Paul Pasali A-grade ladder. And when these two teams first met in the first round, it was Swifts who took the win 25-16. Bomber, the Tigers were just too good the second time round.
yeah, I was getting updates from this game there, and at half time, I think the score was only about 8-6 or 12-6 to North there. So the second half, they've obviously put in a big second half there to take Swifts at Swifts too. So last time I watched Swifts down there at their ground, they were powerful, quick and all that there. But obviously North there, Josh Roberts is back there, and Narva was back too. He had a pretty good series for the Ipswich Diggers. So obviously North is starting to flex a bit of muscle too.
I know Stephen West or Chris Scanlon means Lewis Smith came back into the halves again with Josh Roberts, the man he's been filling in with up until now. Good to see a young fella doing well.
Yeah, well, Lewis, like you said, he was there for the early part of the year, and he did a great job there. They also had another young fella, Jackson Wheel White there. He's only a young fella, and he played really good. So they've obviously got big hopes for him there, just trying to blood him little bit by little bit there. So.
And with some more experience coming in this week, they'll be looking pretty good.
Yeah, well, that's it. Like you said, to beat Swifts at Swifts there, obviously that was a big effort there. So I think they've got the hopes up now. Nobby will have them obviously switched on to continue that run through the rest of the season. Obviously, momentum, big thing.
The second game as well was the Eastern Cobras getting another win over the West End Bulldogs. It was their first win of the season opener to start the season over the Bulldogs, and they did it again. Yeah,
unfortunately, West End, they just can't crack a win. I believe late in the game there, towards full time there, the scores were tied. They must have been scored at 22 all, I think, towards there, and the Cobras got a try right near the end there to obviously break the Bulldogs' hearts there. I'm sure Cole, he would have been hoping for a win or at least a draw there, but unfortunately it wasn't to be for the Bulldogs.
Good news for the Redbank Plains Recreational Reserve crowd, though, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, they're a new club into the competition, so obviously the more wins they can get there, the happier they'll be, and the crowds have been turning up down there too, so it's been good.
Now the final game of the round, and probably the biggest upset as well, was Brothers getting the win over Fassifern. They beat them in the first round, but since then Fassifern have been unstoppable, haven't dropped a game since then. Yeah,
well, I've watched Brothers the last few weeks. Their defence has been suspect, to say the least there, but they really muscled up there. Their forwards just freaking held them there, and they got the ball out to the backs there. There were some big hits out there. The game looked like it could have got fiery at some stages there, but they all held their discipline in check there, and Brothers thoroughly deserved their win.
Well, it shakes things up on the ladder as well. I guess Fassifern were behind the top two teams there, but with a game in hand against the Eastern Cobras, so you could have expected them to be top of the ladder. But this will keep them back down a little bit, which will keep the race a bit tighter as well.
Yeah, well, I think on the ladder now, I think Goodna are on top on 20, and then I think we have 3 teams on 18 points. So it's very congested at the top there. Obviously, when Fassifern play Cobras in the catch-up game, if Fassifern win that, they're probably up near the top. So, but it's very congested near the top of the ladder. So every win's vital to all the teams. So
I think that replay is going to be played in the Ipswich Cup weekend as well.
Yeah, I do believe it. There was talk about the Friday, but I do believe it might be the Sunday after Ipswich Cup. So.
Excellent. Well, moving on to the Intrust Super Cup competition now, and round 10 kicked off with South Logan travelling up to North Queensland to take on the Townsville Blackhawks on Saturday afternoon. At half-time, the Magpies only had a 10-6 lead, but in the second half they came out firing, getting a converted try just 5 minutes into the second half. In the end, the Magpies proved too good on the day, taking the win 22-6. Also on Saturday, the Northern Pride took on Tweed Heads, and the Central Queensland Capras welcomed the Ipswich Jets to Rockhampton, but we'll get into that game in just a moment. On Saturday, the Redcliffe Dolphins also took on the Mackay Cutters. And Bomber, any surprises for you in terms of the results that we've got up in the moment?
Probably South Logan there. Like you said, the Blackhawks are up at home, a very hard team. They're one of the hardest teams to beat at home, obviously, because of the travel that the teams have to get up there. And we watched the Jets beat South Logan at their ground. So, but obviously South turned it around, and the Blackhawks, which are a bit of a star-studded team, obviously got ambushed at home. So.
And a tight win for the North Devils over the East Tigers as well, 36-32, and missing Cody Nikarima, who's been called up into the Broncos squad as well, and Joe Offengowie and George Fye, who was making his debut for the Broncos. So they still did quite well without a few of their, star players.
Well, I think the Norths were probably the outsiders in this game, and that's probably a bit of an upset. And also Chris Sandow didn't play in that game. He got dropped for missing a training session. So to win at Suzuki Stadium there, 36-32, I'm sure their coach Mark Glidden would be very happy with that result. So.
And as we see the PNG Hunters and Wynnum Manly getting the bye this week, the PNG Hunters were probably happy that they got the bye after playing in the international round last week with, I think it was 12 players out of that squad playing in the international Kumul side. Yeah,
well, obviously the QRL, whoever does the draw there, has done the right thing there. That's it'd only be fair that if you've got 12 players playing in there to give them the bye there. I don't think any other team in the competition could back up after having 12 players playing in a representative, well, in a test match basically. So.
Well, it's a bruising encounter. I'm sure they were well rested over the weekend, that's for sure. Well, as we look at the ladder as well, the Ipswich Jets are just sitting on level points with the North Devils as well, sitting in 8th spot and really nipping at the heels of the top 6.
Yeah, well, as you can see there, they're both on 10 points, them and North there, but you've only got South Logan and the Townsville Blackhawks. They're only one win ahead, so.
And only 1 point ahead of that is the Sunshine Coast Falcons and East Tigers as well. So only 3 points in it. That's a tight race in there.
Oh well, that's it. You just got to keep winning. The more you keep winning, the more you keep climbing the ladder. So a loss, like you said, can drop you down the ladder. If the Jets have a loss this week and Wynnum and Pride and Mackay have a win, well, you can drop from equal 7th there down to about 10th. So.
Will be a tough test against the PNG Hunters at home this week for the Jets. But as we turn to the game in focus this week, and it was the Ipswich Jets who continued their winning streak on Saturday with a 30-16 win over the Central Queensland Capras. Nemani Valakapa got a double in the first 15 minutes to take the Jets to a 12-0 lead, with Chris Ash following in Valakapa's footsteps, getting a double himself. The Jets are looking pretty unstoppable now. They finally found their momentum, getting 4 straight victories, even with a break in the middle of that as well. This was a good start from Nemani.
Yeah, well, Nemani started the game on fire. That was the 5th minute. He scored the first try, and then he backed it up in about the 13th minute where he scored another try. But the Jets just seem to be playing a little bit different football at the moment there. They're not going across the field as much, so they're playing a bit more direct there, and obviously that's what Chris Ash brings to the side, a bit more direction. So, so yeah, they are looking good. So.
It was a good effort here, good strength to get the legs pumping and get over the line. Wes was pretty happy about that by the looks of it. And it was a good inclusion by Jesse Roberts coming back into the side after a bit of injury, and Nemani coming back from a foot injury himself as well. Didn't waste any time getting on the scoreboard. Chris Ash, it's one of his rare tries. He was pretty happy with that effort. Oh yeah, I was talking to him during the week there, and he thinks he's a next try scoring hero there. He thinks he's a Jordan Rapana now. So 2 tries there, but if you bob up in the middle of the field, as you'll probably see later in the highlights with the Melbourne Storm and Cooper Cronk, even if the halfback just bobs up in the middle of the field there, that's where he should be. And obviously, I think he scores from this play as well, from the pass from Rory Humphreys there. And he's close to going over himself, wasn't he, Rory? But he got lucky with the Hail Mary. It's worked a few times for the Jets now. When Ash was beaming after the game, getting 2 meat pies up in Rockhampton, he'd be happy with that. But it was the Jets' defence that really did stand out for them, as we saw before. Luke Catewell getting sent for 10 minutes. They had to defend about 6 sets on their own line, and they kept repelling the Capras. Yeah, well, like I said, it was 18-4 at half-time there, and then the second half they dominated as well. Great pass there from Ben White there on our guest from last week, Richie, over for a try. So. Well, but he's second in the try scoring list in the Intrust Super Cup at the moment, with 9 tries to his name. But as we'll see in a second, he's not far. He's got his teammate not far behind him, with Michael Purcell, the kangaroo catcher, as he shows his speed to get across the line for the final try of the game as well.
Oh, well, it's not very often that the Jets win games and Michael Purcell doesn't score a try. So hopefully we can see a couple this weekend for him. So.
Well, that's it, especially in front of a home crowd. Although Richie coming up against his former teammates from only a couple of weeks ago, he'll be fired up. Yeah,
well, obviously we'll talk about that later, but obviously the P&G Harmony Day there, it's always a big day at the Oval, draws a big crowd. So
hopefully some more highlights. Well, coming up after the break, we'll be discussing all the action from Super Saturday, with some unforeseen comebacks in the NRL that left some people scratching their heads. Later in the show, we'll be previewing all the action from this weekend's game in the Rugby League Ipswich and Intrust Super Cup competitions. All that and more here on After the 80. Welcome to After the 80, your local source of everything rugby league. And Super Saturday this weekend was a day of comebacks, and it all started with the Panthers taking on the New Zealand Warriors. Warriors looked very strong in the first half, going into the break with a 28-6 lead. Unfortunately for the home side, the Panthers came out strong early in the second half and left the Warriors scoreless. Panthers scored 30 unanswered points to take a 36-28 win by the final whistle. One of the Warriors looked really good in the first half, but in the second, the Panthers looked really good in the second half. Were you surprised by that comeback for them?
Well, I think a lot of people were when you've got the players the calibre of Foran and Johnson and Tuivasa-Sheck in your side there. With a 28-6 lead, you just don't lose them games. They're unlosable games, and the Panthers are not a team in form. It's not as if they were playing a star-studded team in form. So it was very disappointing. Very disappointing from the Warriors.
Are there going to be some fans that are going to be ditching the jersey early?
Well, from the footage we've seen on the weekend at half-time, the fans booed Penrith off the field and were yelling and all that there. I bet you they're probably the same fans that were probably cheering and high-fiving them when they made the comeback. So, like I said, rugby league sometimes can be a game of two halves. So, and obviously it was a game of two halves. So.
Well, Warriors made over 300 tackles in that game as well, but it was possession just didn't go their way.
No, well, the second half there, Matty Moylan really stood up in the second half there. I think he ran for nearly 200 metres. So, and Matty Moylan, if he can get the ball in his hands, he's going to always be a danger, and obviously that's what he was in the second half with Dallin Watene-Zelezniak. Out wide.
Well, I know a lot of the talk is going to be about a poor form for the Warriors in the second half, which was compounded by the fact that they were at home. But do you see this as being a bit of a turning point for the Panthers?
Well, that's right. A win can spark you into action there, and obviously if they can take that second half into the game this week and for the rest of the season there, they could be back, because if you remember at the beginning of the season, everyone was tipping the Panthers, myself included, to be minor premiers or be up there in the top four to be a premiership force, and they're sitting well outside the 8. So a win against the Warriors away might just kickstart their season.
Well, regardless of their form across the season, to play the Warriors at home is always a tough test for any team. But I guess, as you said, most people would have had them in their top 4 picks for the end of the year to have the Panthers up there. I guess, how do you see the origin period affecting them, though, with players like Matty Moylan probably leaving to go join the Blues?
Yeah, well, I think that's always hard too. That's why the Broncos and that need to get the points up before Origin, because when Origin comes, it's always a form change for the Broncos. Last year they were the form team leading the Origin. As soon as the Origin period come on, the Broncos fell away a bit, and it's probably going to be the same for them. They're probably going to have James Tarmo away and at least Matt Moylan away. So,
would there be any chance of a surprise selection of Peter Wallace in at hooker for the Blues?
Well, his name's been mentioned there. It's bobbed up with Nathan Peets there, but all the talk seems to be that Laurie's going to going to stay loyal and be with Robbie Farah still. So,
Would you be happy with that decision?
oh well, I don't mind frigging Robbie. Robbie's been there before. I know Queensland's going to say get rid of him and all that there, and other Blues fans are going to say he's had his go. But on his day, Robbie can turn a game. So, but if they decide to pick Wallace or Nathan Peats there, I'd probably prefer Nathan Peats myself. He's a tough Origin style footballer. So.
Well, speaking of Nathan Peats, the second game of Saturday and the first game played at Suncorp Stadium as part of the double header for the NRL round this week was the game. The game was potentially the game of the round in round 10. It was a high octane fueled game with both teams playing 80 minutes of high paced football. It was neck and neck the whole game, but the Titans just grabbed a win with Conrad Hurrell getting a beautiful 78th minute try to take the Titans to a 38-36 victory over the Melbourne Storm. Bomber, I don't think anyone could have predicted the scoreline at the end of the 80 minutes. There was 74 points scored in just 80 minutes. It was high octane, as I said.
Yeah, well, like you said, very high scoring game there. I think by the NRL records, the 36 points by Melbourne are losing the game is the highest in NRL history. So if you score 36 points, you don't lose the game. So I'm sure if we had footage of Craig Bellamy in the dressing rooms...
I think there's a reason we won't.
Yeah. So that's, I mean, they'd be going on fire there after Gold Coast had scored the first try there. Billy clicked in the action there and Cooper Cronk there and they looked like they had the game in control. The Titans come back and then it was a seesawing game up and down.
Billy Slater, as you said, he's putting his hand up as we see him latching onto an inside ball there, making... his own pitch for a Queensland selection himself, possibly pushing Boyd out of fullback, and it was a great combination by the
big
Storm
three.
spine.
Yeah, well that's it. Once you get them three together, I don't know whether the NRL has ever seen a spine like them three. So you've got a case that all three of them could nearly be immortals at some stage. So. So they're going to be hard to beat. And there's Cooper Cronk, like I said earlier in the show, just backing up in the middle of the field there, like a good halfback does, and he scored 2 tries. So.
Melbourne Storm made 12 errors in this game compared to the Gold Coast Titans 8. For the Storm, that's a bit unusual considering they're probably the most well-drilled side in the competition.
Oh, well, like you said, Bellamy has his team trained to the minute all the time. They're always a great defensive team. They're always great on attack there. And if you've got the puppet master like Cameron Smith in there, he just leads them around there. He's that experienced that they are well-drilled. So.
The 63% completion rate as well, I guess, with the inclusion of Tohu Harris and Billy Slater in great form as well. You've got Josh Addo-Carr, who's been fantastic for them. Soon, Vanu Valu, fantastic again. Yeah,
well, that's it. Jared Wallace had another big game. I think he's been their best player all year, Jared Wallace. He takes the hit-ups there, he makes the metres. Lavani Pulu, who won in the game 2 weeks ago, he had another strong game. And a young fella on debut, Morgan Boyle, he had about 18 hit-ups for 180 metres in your debut game in the NRL against the Melbourne Storm. Like, you think he'd be a little bit daunted by that, but obviously he's a footballer. And
Well, it was a great occasion to rise to the double header at Suncorp. This was kicking it off, and for the fans, there was a lot of Gold Coast fans there at the stadium, and they were hoping their team could get there in the end. But I guess even they would have been surprised by the result. As we see the game-winning try for Conrad Hurrell, they just seemed to really want this win, though, didn't they? Yeah,
well, as you can see by the highlights there, you think they won the grand final, but obviously to beat the Melbourne Storm. It doesn't matter where you play the Melbourne Storm. Like I said earlier, they're well drilled, and to beat them at Lang Park in front of a big crowd was obviously a big thrill for the Titans boys. So
sold out 55,000. You'd be forgiven for thinking it was a grand final.
Yeah, well, the double headers are a good aspect. They have to try and get that into Sydney to alleviate some of the poor crowds you see down there.
Well, it definitely paid off for us. Well, now on to the final game of Saturday and the second game of the doubleheader at Suncorp Stadium. It was half-time. It looked like it was Manly on the way to a blowout win over the Brisbane Broncos, going into the half-time with a 14-0 lead. The Broncos came out firing, getting a try in just the 4th minute of the second half, and ended up keeping Manly scoreless in the second half, taking a 24-14 win and 5 in a row for the Brisbane Broncos. Well, Manly had everything go their way in the first half, including a try off the back of one of the biggest forward passes we've seen this year. And then Manly just lost their form after Tom Trbojevic picked up a nasty leg injury, which has been much talked about after the game as well.
Yeah, well, but as you said, Manly begun on fire there. Tom Trbojevic here. Look, he's a great player. It was probably nearly a certainty. This is the pass there that's obviously floated forward about 5 metres. So
you can see Boyd blowing up before the pass even hits the ground. It was hard to watch for the fans. There was a lot of boos after that try, but I guess Brisbane got their revenge in the second half, which was surprising to see both teams kept scoreless in a full half.
Yeah, well, like we said about Bellamy at half time at full time with his talk, I'm sure Wayne, who doesn't get as animated as what Bellamy does there, obviously had a great talk to him at half time. Obviously, that wasn't the start that they were after, but then after that, being 14-0 down there, the backs seemed to click into gear there. There's a great ball there, so.
Corbin Sims, he's been in great form for the Broncos, and it's been interesting watching their interchange, how they've used that each week, I guess, with Sam Thaiday and Corbin Sims. Corbin wearing the number 8 but coming off the bench. They've really used the impact. Yeah,
well, like I said, this is the controversial thing where he was tackled in the air, which has obviously put Tom out now for about 6 weeks with a bad ankle injury. Under the rules, it's legal there, but I still think it's a dangerous tackle. If you're going to tackle somebody in the air, it's not a great look on the game, and as you can see him going off there, so he's got 6 weeks on the sideline now with a bad ankle injury.
And one of the sneakiest tries you'll see all year here with Cody Nikorima scooting away after a drop ball in the tackle there. It looked like both teams were just standing still waiting for the ref to blow a whistle. Yeah,
well, I'm not sure what Manly were doing there. He got tackled there and lost the ball, so the ball's still live there. You've got to play to the whistle there, and obviously Cody Nikorima said, oh, well, I'll pick it up and run and see what happens, and it was a try.
It's hard to catch him off start-stop though, isn't it?
Oh, well, very quick over short distance. So.
I guess for the Broncos, that was worrying signs in the first half, considering they pride themselves on the defence. Manly just seemed to slide through them very easily. But would you be more happy with the fact that they bounced back from that?
Oh, well, it's always, to win the game, that's what you're after there. It's an 80-minute game, but obviously the slow start would be a concern for Wayne, because obviously against Brisbane, they can afford to come back, and they're playing at home. When you're playing away and you're 14-0 down and the crowd's behind it keeps that team going. So
makes an interesting race at the top of the ladder as well, with the Storm still clear on 16 points, but a three-team race with the Roosters, Cronulla and Brisbane on 14 points in second place.
Yeah, well, like I said, before Origin there, you've got to try and get the points up, and obviously Brisbane have got their points up. The Melbourne Storm, the form team of the competition there, so and the Sharks, they're just... Everybody had written them off that they can't go back to back, but I can't see why they can't at the moment. They're playing some great football. So as the season gets on and over the Origin period, that's where things change. So
they don't look like they've slowed down with the loss of Ben Barber.
No, well, obviously Gallen and Luke Lewis and all them there. You've still got a great crew there. So obviously they've moved on from the Ben Barber and Michael Innes there. So
well, as always, Origin's going to shake things up. So it'll be interesting to see how the ladder shapes up over the next 5 to 6 weeks. Coming up next in the program, we'll be previewing all of the action in round 9 of the Rugby League Ipswich competition and round 11 of the Intrust Super Cup. All that and more here on After the 80. Welcome back to After the 80, your local source of everything rugby league. And round 9 of the Rugby League Ipswich competition kicks off on Sunday with Brothers Ipswich hosting the Swiss Bluebirds, the battle of 3rd and 4th. Last time they came up against each other in round 2, Brothers only just got a 20-16 win in what was a very tight game. Bomber, it's going to be a big round with all 3 games coming up on Sunday at 3 p.m. I guess, which game do you think is going to be the one to watch?
Well, obviously the big game's probably the second game there, the Goodna Eagles and Fassifern Bombers. Last time they played down there, Fassifern upset Goodna. I think that's their only loss for the year down there after being 12 all or something, 14 all at half time there. They raced away to win by about 20 points. So this time it's back up Hayes Oval there for another home game for the Bombers after last week there, and that's probably the game of the round. So yeah.
I saw some good photos coming out of the Bombers game against Brothers on the weekend, and it looks like they're getting a good crowd to Hayes Over as well. Yeah,
well, the can bar up there got very vocal on the weekend there. Probably a few unsavoury comments, but anyway, that's for the league to look at there. But yeah, they're very passionate up there. So on a Sunday there.
Excellent. Well, the triple header's going to make things interesting. I guess you got to pick and choose this weekend if you want to see a game.
Yeah, well, normally on the Saturday and Sunday I can go to both games, but obviously I'll probably head back up to Fassifern there, watch the Goodna Fassifern game, or either get to the Brothers Swiss game there, as that'll probably be a good game as well down at Brothers there.
And we've got the Walk for Wilson on Sunday, as well, which will finish up at the Brothers home ground.
Yeah. Unfortunately, one of the players, our junior Togia there, doing it a bit tough now with MND. So, but like they say, the rugby league community gets around and helps the people, and everybody that knows Junior knows he's one of the most genuine blokes around. He's one of the kind-heartedest blokes around, and he's a very funny man. So.
He's a larger-than-life character. He's going to be well received at Brothers, I'm sure, on the weekend. And the third game of the round was the Norths Tigers and Eastern Cobras, with the West End Bulldogs getting the bye for the weekend. I guess that's going to be a good one for the Norths to back up at home. Although the Eastern Cobras coming off a win against the Bulldogs, they'll be fired up as well. Yeah,
well, obviously Norths are probably the form team, but the Cobras winning last week there, obviously when you're winning there, the mindset's a bit different. You can go into it, we can keep winning. So yeah.
Well, they've been a surprise packet all season so far. They're not afraid to upset a team, and they don't seem up against the Bulldogs last week. That was again the youngest team in the competition against the oldest team in the competition, but they don't seem to let reputation hold them back.
No, well, I'm sure they're probably a little bit past expectation at the moment there. I'm sure they were hoping if they could get one win for the year, they were probably happy. Being a building year for them, they could work on that in the next year, and they've already had 3 wins, so and the season's only about halfway over. So,
well, it's going to be great for their player retention numbers, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm sure Morris Kemp will be happy. So,
well, he's coach of the year last year. He's done an admirable job again this year as well. But yeah, moving on to the Intrust Super Cup competition now, and round 11 will kick off with the Ipswich Jets hosting the PNG Hunters, which will be the game of the round for us. This game's always a crowd pleaser. With the current form the Ipswich Jets have found, it's going to be a fierce competition as well. Just a reminder that this game will be brought to you live via the Phoenix Media Hub and the Queensland Times. The hardworking students will be at the ground, so make sure all of the action is streamed live from 3 p.m. Bomber, last year the PNG Hunters won this game, but do you think the Jets have what it takes to win their Harmony round game at North Ipswich Reserve?
Well, obviously this game it's one of the biggest games at the Reserve all year. It's the biggest game crowd-wise there. The Jets do a fantastic job on this game, bringing the Harmony game there. There's different foods around and there's different stalls and all that there. The game's big there. The PNG following from Brisbane get to see their players from back home in Australia, so they get up there wherever the PNG go there, and it's a big game. And like you said, PNG won this game last year, but the Jets won the year before in a bit of an upset. So PNG sitting on top of the ladder, they can't afford to be losing this, and obviously the Jets can't either.
And coming off the bye and 12 of their players making the international squad, it's been a good reward for how they've been going this season. I guess the Ipswich Jets, it's going to be the biggest test over the last 4 weeks for them. Having said that, though, they have defeated teams like South Logan Magpies, who are in great form at the top of the ladder as well. So there's every chance that the Jets could do this one this weekend.
Oh, well, look, like I said, the Jets at home there, they've had a win at home now there. So the fans will get over there, and I'm sure if they keep playing the style of football that's propelled them to the 4 wins, that there's no reason why. It's going to be a tough battle. It's going to probably be a forward battle there. So Nat Neal and Tyson Lafippo and them have to really get on top there, and then the ball can get out the back line to the speedsters, out to Nem and Purcell and Richard Pandia, so West Conlon.
I think they'll all be preparing for some ice baths on Sunday. Whichever way it goes, it's going to be a bruising encounter. Always is with these PNG players. They're tough and they're built strong.
No, it's always very, very physical there. They just love their rugby league, so they get their bodies in shape there. They like putting on big hits and all that there. So for the white fella there, he takes it a little bit tough there, and the ice baths obviously are well used after the PNG game.
Yeah, that's it. Well, as we said, the USQ students will be down there live streaming the game on Saturday, so we're going to be sure to catch a fair few highlights in the cameras, and hopefully a win for the home team. Yeah,
well, it's always good. It's always a great job that the USQ do there. I watched it a couple of weeks ago. I was in Brisbane there when they played at home there, and it was great to be able to watch the action, keep the scores up to date, and listen to, well, I was going to say expert commentary, but it was you commentating that day. So, but it was good to be able to listen to the game with not being there. So.
Oh, it was a lot of fun to commentate. And you could say the expert comes from Michael Nunn, the Jet Stats man, who was alongside me for the commentary.
Yeah, well, that's it. He's the Irvin Rosenwater there. Knows all the stats on how many hit-ups someone's taken and how many games they're playing and how many points this fella needs. So he's the man.
Yeah, that's it. Well, we'll be looking forward to a lot of rugby league action across Ipswich, as we said, with the Ipswich Jets taking on the PNG Hunters on Saturday, and then followed by a triple header on Sunday in the Ipswich Rugby League competition. Thanks for joining us again for another week of After the 80, and look forward to catching you next week.